Fires have been raging in Chernobyl for the second week. Fires are really terrible, literally destroying everything in their path. When you watch these videos, it's hard to hold back the tears. Forests that were revived after man-made human intervention are being destroyed. They started unique species of plants and animals appeared in the exclusion zone to recover and flourish. Look at these images, and here it is burning like this, for example. The village of Lyudmyla is now completely destroyed. Summer camp Izumrudny, partially destroyed. The village of Kopachi village Poleski, some people still lived and they lost their homes. There was a fire on the outskirts of the city itself. Chernobyl, which as many know today, is alive. There live workers of the exclusion zone and many self-settlers. But this fire was stopped, as well as the fire was stopped on the approaches to the military town. Chernobyl 2, which is located next to the unique only in the world over the horizon radar station Duga, and here literally behind the fence the fire stopped and the town, thank God, preserved. On April 14th, the situation with the fire was critical. The fire came close to the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, the city of Pripyat, and the Podlesnoye radioactive waste storage facility.
Ужас, а там вот видите уже огонь даже, наверное, красный. То солнце, ужас. Ну уже пепел даже.
Firefighters held the defense for a long time, and at night rain came to their aid. On April 15th, only a few small fires remained in the exclusion zone. Of course, it is a pity for animals. They die, they suffocate in the smoke, they burn. Now I'm showing you a video of these horses trying to escape the fire and partially burned. This is all very scary. Many thanks and a low bow to all those who works in the exclusion zone. People work practically without sleep, often there is no opportunity to eat, they work hard fighting this element. I think that many people know that in the exclusion zone in the air you cannot eat, because you can eat a radioactive particle. In the center of a fire, naturally this possibility increases many times, so people often work for many hours without food. A few days ago, firefighters managed to contain the fire by plowing the ground. People worked at night, because the wind dies down at night. The speed of the wind was almost stormy. The fire was stopped thanks to the heroic work of firefighters. In our time, for people all over the world, especially for those who live not so far from the exclusion zone, this applies to Russia, Ukraine and Belarus. The question of increasing radiation is relevant, whether forest fires can increase radioactivity and how it will affect all of us. I believe that it is not so much people who are afraid of radiation itself, but rather the terrible stories about radiation that periodically appear in the media. Now I will give you an example of what I read. In one publication it was written that in the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, radiation due to the Chernobyl fires was exceeded to 11,000 of a milliroentgen, but 11,000 of a milliroentgen is 11 microroentgen. This is the absolute norm for a city line.
who is not familiar with these numbers, I explain that up to 20 microroentgen the rooms in which you are always in an absolutely safe norm, up to 30 microroentgen sanitary standards, up to 50 microroentgen is the maximum allowable norm. There is no excess outside the exclusion zone, and the zone itself the radiation is slightly exceeded, but I later tell about it.
Further in this article there was also just a stunning statement, a masterpiece of unprofessionalism. It was written there that radiation in the center of the fire was exceeded 17 times the norm, but in fact there are radioactive spots on the territory of the exclusion zone, on which the radiation background is exceeded and 100 times even during the Chernobyl accident. And now I want you just
literally show on your fingers what is really happening, in particular in the city of Chernihiv, located 70 kilometers from Chernobyl, and a few days ago the wind changed direction towards the city of Chernihiv.
I turned on my mobile dosimetry application. The sensor looks like this. If it was he would start to squeak some excess, warning of danger, and show me at least if there were more than 50 microroentgen permissible now. Now I have a schedule constantly being written, the values are displayed on the screen, how many, and so now the readings fluctuate. From about 7 to 14 microroentgen is the absolute norm, there is no excess here. Now I'll show you a close-up of the graph itself, on which these points are indicated. There are absolutely no slight fluctuations in the radiation, but what I want to tell you about this, that both our clothes and our skin protect us from external radiation, that is, it is not so dangerous. We are most concerned about internal radiation in the case of fires. Now I will explain a little. In theory there are different types of radionuclides, some of which are heavy, transuranic elements, which are currently located in the exclusion zone at a depth of about 5-6 centimeters. Of course they can rise into the air, and for example, if peat or forest litter from grass and leaves burns, if it ignites, then it is quite possible that these transuranic elements can rise with hot air or smoke. But there are also light radionuclides that can be absorbed by the roots of trees. The wood becomes radioactive accordingly. When particles of ash are burned, they rise into the air and can be transported over fairly large distances.
As for these heavy radioactive elements, until recently it was believed that they remain in the exclusion zone. They simply can't fly over long distances, but nevertheless, in 2016, they conducted research on these Chernobyl radionuclides were found thousands of kilometers from the exclusion zone, so there is still such a transfer option, but it is more likely that these light radionuclides with ash particles and already radioactive particles can be transported to and the long distance, and in order to investigate this whole thing, special tests are carried out by laboratories. They let air through the filter, catch the most particles, and then examine the filters on a spectrometer.
A spectrometer is such a device that shows exactly which radionuclides are in the air, their quantity is, and here these laboratories are now working in an enhanced mode, constantly taking measurements, displaying readings, and values are shown on the website of the Exclusion Zone Management Agency, if anyone is interested.
I'll link of this agency, you can come in to see the research results. The laboratory is located in several places in the exclusion zone itself. These particles first of all rise vertically and then are transferred somewhere. To the best of my abilities, I decided to conduct an experiment. I took a regular cotton pad. I will use it as a filter, a funnel. I put a cotton pad inside the funnel, inserted a homemade filter into the vacuum cleaner hose, let air in for a couple of minutes. After the experiment, about 2 hours, I expected it was necessary, because radon decay products can get on the filter and, accordingly, there will be an error.
For the purity of the study, I will make 3 measurements. The first one is just
air environment, how much the value shows. Then we will measure the usual clean cotton pad. Since cotton is organic matter, there is also radioactive potassium there.
Be afraid of radioactive substances everywhere around us. It is not dangerous for living organisms. The whole matter is in the dose. For example, granite is also radioactive.
The next third measurement, we already make this dirty cotton pad, through which we let the air through, see what we get.
So, looking at the results, frankly speaking, there is no particular increase, but you must admit hundredths of a microengen, the difference with the usual values, is not a reason to panic.
As you already know, fires in the exclusion zone happen once every 2 times a year, and some people get panic every time. My friend works in a special laboratory for the study of the environment. I think she would have warned me in case of serious danger. Precipitation is represented by precipitation from clouds formed or passing over an area with increased radioactivity. Particles that spill with rain or snow fall into such clouds. But according to studies, the concentration of particles there is negligible, and even if it bothers you, just wash your clothes if it gets in the rain. Now I'll tell you how at the very beginning of fires in the capital of Ukraine, the city of Kiev, studies were conducted on the content of the cesium radioactive element. There was an excess of the content of the cesium isotope, but this excess did not bring significant harm, since it was very short-lived. In the first days of April, smoke from fires headed to Kiev. The recorded excess of the radioactive isotope of cesium was 100 times less than the maximum permissible norm. But in some media outlets there appeared frightening headlines designed for people who they don't understand the problem.
Danger existed only for those who were directly in the exclusion zone and fought a fire, because in the air, along with smoke, there were radioactive substances.
After the fires last year, workers in the exclusion zone and firefighters underwent research on a special instrument ChNPP, a human study spectrometer. This device is used to conduct expert examinations of people injured in radiation accidents and incidents living in radioactive contaminated areas and personnel working with radioactive substances. Also, the device can also be used to assess the activity of gamma-emitting radionuclides in large-sized samples of food products in kind and in samples at high-volume environment. Even I myself recently underwent research, because I visit the exclusion zone for work. As a result of the research, it turned out that the people who participated in the fire extinguishing received the same harm to the body as if you decided to pick and eat mushrooms and berries in the forest in the exclusion zone or to take fish in the river. This is dangerous, but not deadly. The reason for the fires this year was the human factor. Here is an example. A video that is popular has millions of views. In the video, illegal visitors to the exclusion zone set fire to dry bedding as a result of improper actions. A forest fire started. Forests and fields of the exclusion zone are saturated with dry grass, a lot of fallen trees. Fires here can cause accidentally thrown cigar, and even a bottle that is heated in the sun. In addition, this winter was without snow, the grass dried up early.
Some people have a bad habit of burning grass on their farms. As a result of such activities, entire fields, forests, and even settlements are burned.
This year's fires destroyed my plans. I wanted to tell you about many places connected with the liquidation of the Chernobyl disaster, so that posterity will know about it, that the mistakes of the past are never repeated. This year, many of them were lost forever, and I can't tell you about them. Unfortunately,